Hello, I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today, we explore the perfect storm of youth on drugs. Tobacco, vaping, pouches, gummies, and other edibles are keeping addictive nicotine in the danger zone of youth experimentation with drugs and exposure to lifelong problems with addiction. Tabitha Girdner with the Iowa Department of Health and Human Services is dedicated to combating teen tobacco and vaping addiction. She needs the help of every teen and parent in this fight, and we invite her here to let us know a little bit about what is happening and what we can do to keep our children safe. Tabitha, welcome to the show, and tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Thanks, Peter. I'm happy to be here. As managing the tobacco program for the state of Iowa, we have a lot of programs that we offer within our tobacco program. One of those is our My Life, My Quit youth cessation program. And the reason that that program is so important is because our most recent data tells us that 1 in 4 11th graders in Iowa are using tobacco. That could be anywhere from cigarettes to e-cigarettes. So we know that it's an issue in our state. And we recognized that back in 2019 when we were looking for cessation programs and ways to help schools specifically because they were seeing a really big influx of vaping devices being found in schools among youth. And that's when we started to implement our cessation program, My Life, My Quit. And we've been able to help hundreds of youth in Iowa find a resource to help them with their addiction.
One thing that we constantly hear from professionals in addiction science and substance use disorder is that nicotine is one of the most highly addictive drugs out there. It's really up there, not far behind cocaine, heroin, and opioids. And I don't think a lot of parents and kids really realize that. What are your findings when you talk to parents and children about this?
Well, what's interesting about nicotine, especially the nicotine in vaping devices, is that it's not your traditional combustible tobacco, nicotine that's found in cigarettes of sorts. This nicotine has benzoic acid added to it, so it's turned into a nicotine salt. The manufacturer of Juul, they kind of created this new nicotine salt, we'll call it. And they've also made claims that it enters the bloodstream 2.7 times faster than traditional nicotine. So we're not even talking about the same nicotine that you would find with cigarettes, which is why it's more addictive. The other thing about vaping products specifically, and the reason I want to talk about vaping products is because we know that it is the most used product among youth and young adults in our state and nationally, is that there's no federal regulations really either on what's actually going in these products, how much nicotine is in them. We don't really know. And so when you're talking about, well, not only just do we not really know, there's also no way to count how much nicotine you're getting. Whereas in a cigarette, you would know that there's 20 cigarettes in a pack. You can kind of count, I've had 10 cigarettes today. That's not the case with vaping products because usually you can't see the liquid that's inside of them that you're vaping. So you have no way of really knowing how much nicotine you're even putting into your body to begin with.
And as a former smoker, I can say that one of the checks and balances was the fact that it did taste terrible. And eventually you felt like, man, I think I'm smoking too much, and thankfully my kids' pressure on me to quit over 30 years ago was just phenomenal. And I bless them for it every day. But even though at the time I thought, what an awkward situation. But they're flavoring all these things. They don't have any of that. They could be like saying, oh, this grape flavor is great. I want more. I want more. And it seems insidious to me that a company would do that because it's as if they're trying to get children addicted.
Well, interesting you say that because that's why there was a major lawsuit against Juul is because they were, marketing to youth with youth appealing flavors. And that's why the federal government put a ban on flavored products. However, there was a loophole. That was only on reusable products, not on disposable products, which we know that the majority of products sold now are disposable products simply because they can still have flavors. We recently have worked with schools across the state to identify products that are being used or being confiscated among youth. Over 90% of these products are flavored, and most of them are strawberry, raspberry, blueberry, and have some sort of reference to rainbows or ice. I actually just documented one yesterday that was gummy bear ice flavored. So when you look at the flavor profiles of these products, they are definitely youth appealing, which we know is a major issue as well.
And we have a little bit of time left in this first portion of the show. All of this talk still doesn't talk about how dreadfully addictive this product is. I mean, for young children and young brains, there appears to be a pattern of other addictions that follow, starting with nicotine. In the short time we have left in this segment, what are your thoughts?
I don't have exact numbers or data pulled up on my screen, but there's so much research that shows that nicotine has the same addictive properties as other drugs and can even lead to other drug use, such as cocaine, heroin, methamphetamines. We also know that nicotine forms or can disrupt the formation of synapses in the brain, which help, especially, which is important for youth because we know that the brain's developing until age 25. And we also know that nicotine affects your attention and your ability to have concentration and your mental health overall.
Yeah, I think there's a serious breakdown in both parents and kids understanding the tremendous risk here. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about some of those challenges to get this message out to parents and children in Iowa. See you all after the break. You don't want to miss this.
Malware and bots and worms, oh my. The wild, wild web can be a scary and complex place. And as our digital world expands, so too are the threats. Watch out! Trojan horse. That's why at MediaCom, we take security very seriously and monitor our networks around the clock to stop threats before they can affect you. Not today, Rude Kid. Not all internet is created equal. We build ours to keep you connected and protected.
Watching MC22 is now easier than ever before. All MediaCom customers can watch local programming online anytime. Go to mc22.net, click Watch MC22, and log in with your MediaCom account. Not a MediaCom cable subscriber? MediaCom internet or phone subscribers can watch too. Your local programming leader, MC22, online at mc22.net/watch.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time, which can be really dangerous. He's here. He's here. Wait. What? I can't drive. Why? My. Oh.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Or maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all, if I could go back, I would. But I can't.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're talking with Tabitha. She's been pivotal in tackling tobacco-related challenges in Iowa, especially efforts to protect not only young Iowans, but adults from the dangerous consequences of tobacco use. Tabitha, the story is yours.
Thanks, Peter. Sometimes we often forget that cigarettes are still really prevalent, especially among adult use. Our most recent survey, our Burfist data survey, tells us that among any tobacco use among adults, we're still at 27.6% in the state. That's over 1 in 4 adults in Iowa are using tobacco products. So it's still evident, and that number is steadily increasing. It is not decreasing as an overall use, not specific to cigarettes. Another thing that we know that we have a very high use of smoking among pregnant women in Iowa. Almost double the national rate. So, we have a couple of communities that are disproportionately affected by tobacco in Iowa that our program here at HHS, we're really working on how do we recognize tobacco as a whole. We already know that it's a huge issue, vaping specifically in schools, and trying to keep up with the emerging trends of tobacco specifically, or tobacco overall. But then just thinking about how then does that transition, right? So when we get from that youth, that young adult, which we know that the young adults are using tobacco at almost 1 in 5 rates, and that's that 18 to 34-year-old age range. And then after young adult, what are these folks doing? We see a lot of dual use. So that's that transition, right? From they start young with vaping, then as the young adults, they still maybe vaping a little bit, then they start smoking. Now they're vaping and they're smoking. And we call those dual users, which is about the worst case scenario you can get. And so we see these trends in data, specifically in Iowa, and just working on ways, how can we as a state agency start combating this issue?
You know, when I'm out in public, it's just often, of course. I run into people. I see people vaping. I see groups of kids sitting around vaping, and I see kids smoking. And I always go, and I don't always, but most of the time I'll engage them. I'll say, hey, I'm not a cop. I'm not getting you, but I'm really curious as to why you do this stuff. Because usually my preface is I'm an old guy, so this is all new to me. What do you guys think about this? And almost universally, the young kids say this smoking, they really don't like it, but they really like the vaping. And then you get to the older populations and they're like, oh, vaping's good, but it's so darn expensive. I just, I get my cigarettes and I get my fix, or I feel better and it relaxes me. And I think, wow, well, that's not good, because we get kids started on vaping and flavors. And then later, when they're a little harder core addicted to nicotine, we may see them slide that same path. Is that something you're seeing too?
Yeah, you definitely can see data trends showing, like I said, with the dual use or with the switching of products. It's funny that you say that youth aren't into cigarettes, and I would like to give a lot of that credit back to the Department of Public Health and our tobacco program, because it was 15, 16 years ago when the state implemented the Smoke-Free Air Act, where they said no more smoking in public places, right? And so now we're seeing the benefits of that Smoke-Free Air Act and that policy change, because now it's become a social unnorm to use cigarettes. The problem is that the tobacco industry has a lot more money. They have a lot more access to resources, especially in Iowa. I think last year alone, they spent $106 million on marketing just in our state alone. They spend over $9 billion on marketing expenditures nationally. That's like almost $1 million an hour. So it's insane, the resources they have available to them. So of course they're going to find an alternative, right? An alternative product. When you've reached a population that no longer likes your original product, they're going to find an alternative. And that's what they've done with vaping. And so now we're back to square one, where we were 20 years ago, of how are we going to make vaping the social unnorm?
That's fascinating, because that's absolutely right. What's happening with vaping is testament to how good a job people have done with the anti-smoking campaigns. And now it has to be replicated. Do we see traction? Are kids getting it, that this is like happening all over again and they're a new target of the industry?
It's funny you say that, Peter. Whenever I speak to youth, I always tell them, you are the target. It's important for you to be very aware of your surroundings. When you see these targeted ads towards you on social media, a lot of the times, or when you go into a gas station, or even Walmart, or any other place where you can buy these products, be mindful. The tobacco company, or the tobacco companies, are targeting you. They know that by using these fun flavors and characters and cartoons on their products, they're going to be able to grab you and hook you a little bit easier. I think we are seeing a trend of use of vape use nationally going down. I would say that a lot of that kind of extends to some of the mental health and anxiety, kind of depression type things that we've seen in the past couple of weeks. But maybe after the next break, we can talk more about how vaping specifically is helping or is worsening these mental health issues among youth.
I think that's a great point. We're going to take a break right now, because I'd love to come back and talk about that, because mental health in kids and what they're trying to do to self-medicate might be a big key to what needs to be done here. See y'all after the break. You don't want to miss this.
Dad, I'm not glitching.
I told you, with our new Extreme Internet, it will be smooth streaming.
That's unbelievable.
Well, you better believe it, Missy.
I already finished streaming the whole second season of my show.
So start the third.
What the fast? That's That's really not frustrating.
I'll take that as a compliment.
You should.
I'm gonna get some ice cream. Do you want some?
With the drama-free reliability of Extreme Internet, you'll have to create your own. Get super fast internet with whole home Wi-Fi for as low as $24.99 a month for a year.
You told me not to talk to strangers. You told me not to cross the street without looking both ways.
You told me not to touch the stove.
You told me not to do drugs.
You told me not to drink and drive.
You gave me so many messages about how to stay safe. Why didn't you keep me safe by properly storing your gun?
The fact is, we use the internet for almost everything we do. Smart cage, feed beaker. So when the internet doesn't work the way it should, you don't work the way you should. That's why more homes and businesses rely on Mediacom. Our fiber-powered network delivers 99.99% reliability. And with 650,000 miles of fiber, we have more paths of connection and more ways to avoid outages. Not all internet is created equal. We build ours for you to rely on.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and we're talking with Tabitha about emerging trends that affect youth engagement with nicotine products, the lifelong effects on health and substance use disorder, and some challenges that have only recently made themselves clear that something we have to overcome. One of the things that happened in Iowa is that there's been some legislation that's limiting the amount of surveys that are happening in schools. And some of those had very good intentions, but there are unintended consequences, one of which is a pipeline to children's opinions where they could anonymously and effectively communicate some of the challenges they're facing. And this unintended consequences create some frustrations because kids can't really share what the risks are. How do you face that kind of climate?
Yeah, Peter, that's a great question. Right now at Iowa HHS, we are working on alternative ways to collect data from our youth on specifically, product use or just what they need from the health department or Health and Human Services Department in order to, build out our programs. I still think we're doing a great job, especially with our My Life, My Quit. I can only speak to tobacco really, but with our My Life, My Quit youth cessation program that we can talk about at the next segment. But yeah, we're definitely finding alternative ways, and we're going to get there.
Yeah, we hear a lot of things in dealing with focus groups with kids where they think a lot of the problems they have are because adults don't care. And when they say adults don't care, they're not saying like their mom or their dad. They're really saying that there's this sort of almost like a stigma that there's leadership in the world that disenfranchises young children from what they need. And maybe that's I've got gray hair. Maybe there are things I don't know. There are things I can't get because kids are growing up in a completely different world. But yet we see consequences. We see more adults getting sick. We see higher rates of cancer. We see adults smoking, more likely to be drinking or using other drugs. So we have a lot of examples to show children in terms of how these risks exist. And I'm thinking they really do work. And one of the hallmarks of your programs are the fact that they're data-driven. And the data does show that there really isn't a viable, constructive reason to engage nicotine other than to, well, I'll just say it, make nicotine dispensing companies profitable. There's no health benefit. There's no magic reason to do it. And that's why they flavor all the things and they use the cartoon characters. They do all that stuff. And I think kids are going to start getting that and the industry is going to have trouble. What are your thoughts?
I think so too. I have 4 teenagers of my own, and I think about just what they're going through, right? Just the everyday stuff that they're dealing with, whether that's school, pressure from school, jobs, friends, peers, whatever it looks like. Then they have these outside pressures, of like vaping, right? And not only is that just a pressure, but we have an entire industry, like I said before, with access to an unlimited amount of resources and money that can prey or find a way, to get their hands on these youth. And, we know that that nicotine, especially like you take a hit off your vape, you're going to get that sense of like a little bit of a high, maybe it only lasts 15, 20 minutes, but we know that with nicotine. And if you've ever been a tobacco user, you know that nicotine provides you that instant kind of high. It doesn't last very long, which is exactly why you have to go back and do it again. Um, but like I said before, we also know that the CDC has recently published research to prove that that vaping causes these ADHD type mental health issues, the anxiety, the depression, the unable to stay focused, the irritability. And we're actually working on a media campaign right now to try to combat some of that that understanding of realize that the vaping can make you feel this way too, and if you quit, your mental health is going to be better likely. So I think it's just going to be time. We need more research on not only just the data, but also just research on the products and how what they're causing, the harms that they're causing, and then also just you have to have time, right? Like that's kind of the unfortunate event here is it just takes time to kind of come around to all of this.
And I really love the idea of engaging with kids and learning what their needs are and helping them avoid the pitfalls of self-medicating with something like nicotine when they need to get some real help. But let's take a short break and we come back and talk about some of the programs and things that you have out there for them.
Yeah.
All righty. After the break, Tabitha is going to share some final comments, insights, and inspiration. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Oh boy.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Growing antsy for your favorite sports to return? Lack of quality programming got you down? Well, worry no longer, because Inside Sports is here to satisfy your cravings for the savings, your need for speed, your desire for the umpire. You get the message, right? Tune in to Inside Sports to get a deeper look at athletes on and off the mat, the track, and even the Wi-Fi? Yup, if there's action, you can bet we've got you covered on Inside Sports, only on MC22. Stream online on MC22.net and on our channel Monday and Fridays.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time, which can be really dangerous. He's here. He's here. Wait. What? I can't drive. Why? My. Oh.
Watching MC22 is now easier than ever before. All Mediacom customers can watch local programming online anytime. Go to mc22.net, click Watch MC22, and log in with your Mediacom account. Not a Mediacom cable subscriber? Mediacom internet or phone subscribers can watch too. Your local programming leader, MC22, online at mc22.net/watch.
Welcome back. Today on Surviving Bad, we explored the expanding and dangerous role of nicotine in people's lives, the importance of keeping our youth safe from the risks of nicotine, tobacco use, and vaping, including new products that are coming out, which we'll hear about, and also the fact that this is really a time of a perfect storm between social media, the investment by tobacco firms, and the sort of predatory nature of the work to get children to try these things has made this a risk that's worth talking about. Let's hear what insights and inspiration Tabitha has to share.
Yeah, Peter. So one last thing I really want to talk about is a newer product we're seeing, which is nicotine pouches. They go by various different brand names, but we know that they're taking the youth and young adult population by storm. A lot of it is because it'll say that it's tobacco free, when in reality, maybe it is tobacco free, but it still has nicotine in it. So they're using suggestive marketing to kind of get around that addictive measure. A couple quick things I want you to know about nicotine pouches. Nicotine pouches have usually about 12 milligrams of nicotine powder, which is different again than nicotine salts, totally different type of nicotine. And that's more than double most vapes. So now we're even doubling up. So now we're like quadrupling up from cigarettes potentially. Again, they're listed as tobacco-free alternatives, which come off as low risk, but again, these are not FDA approved. They're still very harmful, high amounts of nicotine and super addictive. And also, over the last 3 years, nicotine pouch sales have increased by 6-fold. So we know that they're taking the youth and young adult population by storm. These are going to look like little white pouches. In fact, one of my friends, her daughter picked one up off the street and thought it was a Barbie pillow. So just be mindful if your kids are using these products. They are harmful. They're very high amounts of nicotine. And I think, Peter, if I can keep going, I think this leads perfectly into the resources and programs that we offer to help parents, to help teens, to help educators get folks who need help with addiction. And that's our 2 programs. Our first one is our My Life, My Quit program. These are all free programs. My Life, My Quit's available to 12 to 17-year-olds. They have access to real-time care from behavioral health specialists that have a master's degree in understanding addiction, really help kids understand how they need help to, or what types of things they can do to combat their addiction. And then also we have Quitline Iowa, which should be a household name. We have specific programs within Quitline Iowa, one of that being our young adult program, because we know that young adults, like we talked about, face different issues, right? They may be dual users. They may be vape users. Maybe they're using vapes. Maybe they're using pouches and cigarettes all at the same time. So lots of poly use. And again, those same specialists and counselors and coaches on the end of the call are there to help them every step of the way. And this is completely free to everybody living in Iowa.
And what would be the best website connection for people to do or helplines?
Yeah, 1-800-QUIT-NOW. That'll get you to where you need to go for Quitline. And then My Life, My Quit, you can actually text START to 36072. That's START to 36072. And it'll get you connected with a quit coach via text. The great part about it is those 12 to 17-year-olds, it's completely confidential. They don't have to tell their parents. They don't have to tell their school. They can just reach out on their own. And so we've tried to make it as easy as possible for everyone to get access to free help.
You know, in a world where big government gets a bad rap from kids and young people, this is one case where you're really working hard to work with them and give them the resources to really take on maybe big business and the things that are trying to mess with their lives a little bit more. And I really appreciate everything you do in your role and what your department's doing. So thank you so very much for sharing this very interesting information today. And thank you all for watching. Check out our website at healthyiowa.org and keep your eye on MediaCom MC22 for our next episode of Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. On MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.